Mike, numbers are out. NFC South update win total projections. I'm going to start from the back and then move to the front. They've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 6.5 wins. Okay, this is now based on draft, right? We went through free agency and the draft, so now you kind of get a sense, okay, what these teams may look like. And, guys, there'll be some cuts and there'll be some adds. But at the end of the day, right now, this is kind of what you look like, wherever you're at right now, moving into, camp. And the Panthers are at 7.5. They of course, selected Bryce Young. We are at 7.5 wins. And they've got the stinking Saints at 9.5 wins. How?
And how, Sway?
How?
No, because I'm looking at some of the things that they did. And, I mean, the free agent-wise, they didn't have a lot of money. The lion's share of the Saints' money went to Derek Carr, as you guys can understand. They even brought back, was that Brian Edwards? Remember the guy that was a stiff here we got from the Raiders?
Yeah.
He wound up with the Chiefs for a cup of coffee, and then the Saints brought him in. Lonnie Johnson, Jonathan Abram, the safety. Is that former Raider, too? Right? The former Raider. So that's who they brought. Marquez Callaway, wide receiver. But, I mean, that's their free agent class, along with Derek Carr. Their draft class, Brian Bresee from Clemson, the defensive end, Fossey from Notre Dame, which a lot of people liked. I know you and I both talked about Kendre Miller, if we had gone offensive line with the first pick from TCU. And then they beefed up O-line. They took a flyer on Jake Haener, the kid from Fresno State, a wide receiver. But, all right, I got to be honest, the best free agent class, I think, is Carolina. And we'll get to them in a second. But do you buy the Saints, though, at 9.5 for an over? I think take the under on that.
I am too, man. And maybe it's my bias. I don't think they are as good as they were 2 years ago. I don't. And guys, as good as I think Cam Jordan is and all these guys, they lost Onyemata to us. That's an aging defense. They're still very stout. Again, that's why they thought, hey, we just need to get the quarterback position right. Andy Dalton was the answer, was not the answer. Jameis Winston wasn't the answer. So they go get Derek Carr. And as much as I like Carr, Mike, I don't think they're as good as they were 2 years ago. Where we didn't even argue. We were like, it's the Saints and everybody else.
Right.
And then, Tom Brady comes into our division, and then he handles it for a couple of years. I think the tide has turned, and I would be willing to tell you that our win total is going to be more than 6 or 7.5. No way.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, unless Desmond Ridder completely – and one thing, by the way –
we won 7 games last year.
A couple guys hit me up, and they said, you really believe in Ridder? And I said, I want to believe. I've only got 4 games. As we go back to what Herm Edwards told Carl and I. You don't really know unless, Herm could be like Arthur Smith and see what the practice habits look like and everything he's doing behind the scenes. And you hope he takes that big leap. But I will say this. With all the weapons we've got, and you consider what Heineke did in Washington with less talent.
Yeah.
If Ridder spits the bit, as they say in horse racing, this guy, Heineke's a decent delivery system. Now, obviously, it's not. No one's even thinking about that. But you still got so many weapons. You just need competent quarterback play, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what the Jets have been looking for like the last decade.
Yeah, I get it, man. I understand. And if you're going to tell me that the Saints are 2 wins better right now because of Carr versus our situation,
right? And that's where it is. And that's where it's at. Carr's a name brand.
Yes, but I'm not going to buy that. I cannot buy that just based on, well, Carr has been in the league and we don't know, and therefore that's 2 more wins.
Right.
Mike, sometimes, listen, these quarterbacks, they put these teams on their back and they carry them, and I'm not seeing Derek Carr do that enough, right? I mean, he just played with the best wide receiver in the league and got benched, guys. Devontae Adams went to the Raiders because of him. He was benched at the end of the season. And now you want me to buy in that they're got two wins better than we are?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with that one. So then the other teams, you want to just consider what they did. Now, we all know what Carolina did. They moved up, made the trade with Chicago, and they get Bryce Young. They also get him some help with Jonathan Mingo. And then the guy that you and I had talked about, depending on where we might have gone in draft, with the edge rusher, DJ Johnson from the Ducks from Oregon. And then some other pieces, and Jamie Robinson, safety from FSU. But the offseason moves you and I talked about. I wanted us to go get DJ Shark. Because I thought the price wouldn't be something that would break the bank. They picked up Adam Thielen. Now, if you feel Thielen's got a little bit of rubber left on the tire, that's pretty good. Picked up Miles Sanders, former Eagle running back. So they've got some pieces. And they also got Hayden Hurst. And they've already had a decent enough defense, as we know. So I could argue that if Bryce Young can hit the ground running, I think Carolina, whose over-under is the same as us at 7.5, should be higher.
Mike, I think, and listen, The problem with this argument right now is we've not seen either Bryce enough, certainly in the NFL at all, and then we've not seen our guy. But I think it's those two teams. I think it's the Carolina Panthers, and I think it's the Atlanta Falcons trying to figure out who's going to win this division, because we almost won it last year, and we weren't half as talented. So I'm buying into – I'll tell you what I am buying into, that Arthur Smith, with more talent, the team's going to be better. You want to talk about winning 2 or 3 more games because of that and the coaching? I'm willing to put my money on that, Mike, and say if we were able to win 7 last year with what we had in a quarterback that was we've got to be able to win 10 this year with better quarterback play and certainly a more balanced attack. Well, and the delivery system's got to be better, right?
But if you're listening to us right now and you're trying to envision, again, we'll get the home and the home and away opponents. We just don't know what the schedule. Schedule's going to drop next week or a couple days after. But Tampa Bay, their over-under is 6.5. And they obviously brought in Baker Mayfield as a sort of a stopgap. And they picked up Greg Gaines from the Rams. And you could argue that, well, Greg Gaines' only success is because he's next to Aaron Donald. So they didn't really blow you away in free agency because it's kind of a retool. But their draft was pretty good. Kalijah Cansey, defensive lineman, we talked about from Pitt. He's a rock star. Cody Mock, that's the kid missing the teeth from North Dakota State. My favorite name, Yaya Diaby from Louisville. We went with our guy Harrison because he's a bit bigger in arm length than this guy Diaby. But their draft didn't suck. Mel Kiper gave him a B. Who knows? It's all subjective. But are the Bucs going to be terrible? Because the vibe down in Florida is this is going to be one of those, well, it's going to take a minute to turn it around. They had their window. Things are now going to be rebuild time in Tampa.
And by the way, a lot of draft pundits, okay, whether you buy into them or not, gave Carolina a high grade for their draft. They did. They liked the fact they went quarterback. They needed to replace the wide receiver they traded, so they went and got Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss. They came back and added to their D-line. Mike, a lot of these guys are like, look, Carolina only had 5 picks. It was round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they hit on every one of these guys, and every one of them, including Jamie Robinson from Florida State, will probably start at safety for him.
Right. So now just a matter of who's going to be able to come up with the best game plan. Remember, Sean Payton's not there anymore. So Derek Carr, for all the things that you and I, we watched, you know his brother in Houston. Carr's one of those guys, he's kind of like Kirk Cousins. He'll get you to this certain point, but do you really trust him? And I think he got done dirty by the Raiders, and I think that, the coach over there, you know how I feel about that kid. The point I'm getting to is he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. But do they have the horses there to get things going? Michael Thomas? Bo, you're a Saints fan. I mean, what? 1,000 yards
has been a bum,
yeah,
Mike,
1,000 yards,
3 seasons.
1,000 yards, 3 yards a catch. He'll have to average, 300 catches. So, but real quick, Bo Johnson, Cajun Bo, you're a Saints fan. What's your expectations?
Look, Mike Thomas is going to be healthy. Look, we've seen him. He's healthy this season. You can come after me if you want. He's been pretty crappy for the past 2 years.
Thank you.
2.5.
Yes.
Yeah, look, he has. He has a lot to prove, though. And Alvin Kamara's healthy, too. We had a nice little draft pick and a running back, too. Added Jamal Williams. And did lose some key pieces on defense, but we're bringing some key pieces back. So 9 or 10. I think it's right around in there. I'll take it over. Yep. I can't just say we're
You know what?
Take
your colors off. You're too close to it.
Yeah, I got to be honest, Cajun, but you've lost speaking privileges.
You're too close to it.
Yeah, you lost speaking privileges. No, I think that Carolina, as we just said, how quickly, and some coaches, Robert Saleh said this a few years ago, everyone kind of develops at their own pace. So if Bryce Young hits the ground running, remember, guys, our job now is to get Bryce Young on the ground. He's not going to be that mobile. He's more like Drew Brees. And let's hope for our sake, because the comp to him size-wise and arm strength and vision and intelligence is like what Drew Brees was coming out of college. Let's hope he's not what Drew Brees was to us for the better part of a decade and a half.
Here's the other part of this, and it may not even factor into most people's mindsets when we talk about these win totals. But if Ryan Nielsen, our new defensive coordinator, is the teacher and developer that we've heard he is, that's a win for us and a loss for the Saints. And I don't care. That's hard to replace, Mike, when you start losing those key guys on your staff. He's been there, guys, forever. It's like 7 years. And so much so Sean Payton wanted to hire him, but couldn't because he hadn't taken a job yet. And then by the time that happened, the Falcons had already made the move. I think that's a big factor in this as well.